Oh, hang on a sec. And you pronounce your last name Mammel, right? Is
That's
it?
right. Yes.
Okay. Just Hi, everyone. Welcome again. Today I have with me Mike Mammel. He is the founder of Mini Titans. He is a passionate advocate for inspiring youth to embrace a growth mindset through the power of failure. Having faced his own struggles from selling vacuums to launching businesses, Mike's journey has taught him that resilience, discipline, and self-belief are built in the face of challenges. With Mini Titans, he channels these lessons into teaching kids aged 7 to 17 how to embrace failure as a stepping stone to success. Through hands-on entrepreneurship education, Mike empowers the next generation to grow, adapt, and thrive in the face of adversity. Hi, Mike. Welcome.
Thank you. Thanks for a great intro.
Well, you gave it to me, so thanks for sending that over. But no, I love what you're doing, and when we met, I was like, "Oh my goodness, I have thought about this so many times with my own child." Like, we don't, as an entrepreneur myself, we don't learn this stuff anywhere, right? It's sort of, you're just kind of stumbling around trying to figure things out as you go. That was the case for me. Certainly, when I started out on my own, I didn't even know how to create an invoice. Like, I didn't know anything, right? So, can you just catch us up to present day? Like, I love origin stories and I love hearing, how and why entrepreneurs started their businesses. And so share the story of how and why you started Mini Titans with us.
Yeah. So, back during the COVID times, I had a tourism business. And then when COVID hit, it really derailed our business. And so I was thinking about, okay, what's next? Still kind of on the tail end of the pandemic. And we were sitting around the dinner table one day, and my kids asked me, "Dad, how do you make money?" And, obviously I could tell them to work for somebody is one way of making money. Um, but I didn't know how to explain business to a 4 and a 6-year-old. And so as I thought there or sat there thinking to myself, how do I explain this in a way that a kid would understand? I couldn't think of one. And so in that failure of a moment of it being able to explain it, I said to the kids, I said, "Why don't I show you?" And from there, we ended up making, like every other little startup, their own lemonade stand. But I wanted to teach them work ethic. So what we did, we didn't go out and buy pre-powdered stuff. We actually found recipes, we tested recipes, and we had to hand press everything that we made. So we hand pressed orange juice, we hand pressed lemonade, and even shredded up the ginger root by hand. And so come sale day, the kids' job was to talk to everybody coming through the door. And I was not hands off, but just in the background. They would give people change, they would set up the drinks, they would pour the drinks, they would do everything. I was just making sure that we stayed sanitary, basically. And they had so much fun, and within 3 hours they earned about $300. And just backtrack a little bit, even before then, I had them negotiate with the store manager for us to set up a shop there. And I also had them negotiate the price of the fruit, so that way they could get a better rate. So with that $300, the rules were you could buy something for that immediate satisfaction. You had to save some for your future education or your future business, and then donate some back to charity. And so that's still our founding principles now, and that's what we do in every camp and in every market that we're a part of.
Oh, that's so neat. So it's you just threw them right in the lion's den, like had to do negotiations, sales, sourcing their product, everything.
Yeah. And they loved the experience so much that they begged me to do it every year.
Oh, that's so cool.
And so
So
that
so what is your background then? Are you before this, were you entrepreneurial or what kind of background do you have?
Yeah, so I have a background in just entrepreneurship, and like I went to college for business. Before college, my first real career was door to door selling vacuums. I was a shy kid in high school, and I didn't want to no longer be a shy kid, and so
Yeah.
I had to push myself out of the comfort zone. And the best way to do it was to sell vacuums and just experiencing that awkwardness face to
Yeah,
face.
I imagine.
So
I would not wanna do that. Yeah, I was a shy kid too, and definitely being, self-employed, an entrepreneur and that kind of thing, you have to get over that pretty quickly or you're not gonna make any sales. So I imagine going door to door doing that would be one, you know, whopping experience, like, yeah, in that in that area. So good on you for doing that, even though you were shy. Um, so can you give us an overview of what Mini Titans is about? How does it work? And like what can you expect if you sign up for Mini Titans?
yeah. So Mini Titans is a personal growth company that we deliver our message through entrepreneurship. So entrepreneurship is the exciting part for kids. Nobody wants to come to our camps and learn honesty, discipline, resilience. That would be boring. So what we do is we teach them also business and financial acumen and the importance of developing that long-term business through those things like honesty, discipline, resilience, focus, work ethic, leadership, and all of the soft skills that go into being a good entrepreneur. We expose them to in a way where they will experience the failure, but there's no risk to them, because once that failure happens, we support, boost them back up, and teach them that every person who's gone through the entrepreneurship has faced this at least a dozen times, and the more you can face this, the better
Yeah.
chances that you have in succeeding. And so in our camps, we start out day one. It's a 5-day program. We go 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. Except for the last day, we actually go 9 a.m. to 7 p.m. And that last 4-hour window is where actually we sell the products back to the community, where the kids get to keep all of the money that they earn. And so the first day of camp, we throw them right into the fire, and we do a good debt versus bad debt situation. So I bring out a whole bunch of toys, and they bid on these toys against each other. And the last spring camp that we did, a kid actually bought a Hot Wheels toy for $10,000. And we teach them that those consumable goods are actually bad debt and not worth going into debt over. And then we switch gears right away, and then we go into a game for good debt. So if there's kids out there that are going to buy all of the ingredients to our cookie recipe, then they will be able to sell cookies and then reduce their debt load, or cake. But if they don't, which no kid ever does, bid on all of the ingredients, then they still have to carry that debt forward. And what we do is we write down their debt, and then I tell them every day that they don't pay it off, so every day that they don't pay it off we charge them 20% interest on their debt. And I say, this is exactly like a credit card. When you're 18, someone's going to give you a piece of plastic, and you're going to have to figure out how you're going to get your way out if you overspend on, especially on consumables. But we are a consumer market, so it's just about being smarter with your money and where you're actually placing your debt. And so the kids earn money through the camp. It's real Canadian fake money. And they earn money through the camp by showing honesty, discipline, resilience, focus, work ethic, leadership, viewing the opportunity. So we pay them for that every day. For instance, in the camp, when they say thank you for the ride, mom and dad, after their parents drop them off, we pay them for that. Every day that they make a step towards their goal that they set for themselves. So we set goals every at the start of the camp. What exactly do you want to accomplish during the program? And what do you want to accomplish at home? Your parents work very hard for you.
Yeah.
And so, whether that's clean your room without being prompted by your parents, whether that's, do the dishes, take a step towards your goal and how you're also going to help out your family. And so any kid who does that every day during the camp or the days that they do it, then we pay them for it. So really
Mm.
rewarding the good, positive behavior that we want to see.
Yeah.
And so then they use that money to pay off their debt, or they use that money to actually enhance their experience. So for instance, the second day after the planning phase of it, they have to plan out exactly what they're going to do on the first day of camp. And anything that doesn't make it on the list, or if they only have, for instance, if you're making slime, you have to have glue. If you only have one thing of glue or you don't specify, I get you one, but I buy 6 others. I store the 6 others in my store, and then you can buy that as the camp progresses. But then you have to make real life decisions because you didn't plan for it on if you're going to spend that money to pay off your debt or if you're going to use that to buy other things to enhance your experience that you didn't plan for. And so it creates a great atmosphere of kids who get to understand how money works and then understand how their planning or lack thereof planning has made them in a tricky spot, right? So how are they going to get
Yeah.
out? We always give them out, but it's a safe way that we account for in the camp.
Yeah, that's excellent that you teach them about failure as well and learning from that, because I think, we hear all the romantic stories about the overnight successes in entrepreneurship, but they're not actually that, right? They're like 20-year overnight successes, right? But we don't hear about all that struggle. We just see the lovely part, the rosy part, right?
Yeah,
So, yeah, so I think that's super important to actually, go through that, like kind of fall on your face a little bit, learn like, okay, what those are the memorable moments, right? That's when the lesson actually sticks with you, is when you fail and now, learn from that. Like, what should I have done instead? So I think that's
exactly.
excellent.
And
Awesome.
the struggle isn't sexy, and so it doesn't sell on
No,
TV, and it's hard to get access to it
no.
unless you
Yeah.
experience it.
Yeah. Yeah. So many struggles. Like, I've been in business for 18 years and you think I haven't struggled at some points, right? It's just part of it. And you have to develop that resilience. Like, that's the companies that go further are the ones you have to be like sticky and resilient and have that grit about you. So, um, and just be always willing to learn and grow and roll with the punches, right? So,
Exactly.
yeah, that's awesome. And the good versus bad debt as well. And I love the 3 categories: buy, save, and donate, like instilling that in them when they're young. Because yeah, like our kiddo has a piggy bank or whatever, but he just wants to buy things, right? Buy, 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 buy. So a good lesson to even for parents to kind of continue on with them after the camp is like, no, that it's not all for spending, right? We have to be realistic about this and like translate that into real life situations, like when you're older. We can't just spend everything we make, and that's a big problem, right? For we don't get taught this stuff in school at all, like financial literacy at all, really. So how are we really expected to be good at that when we've never actually learned anything about it in our youth? So
Yeah,
I think it's
exactly.
super important that you're teaching that. Um, you talk about you emphasize developing the spirit of freedom in children. What does that mean to you, and how do you help kids experience that through Mini Titans?
Yeah. So one of the biggest things for an entrepreneur is, well, how do you grow your business, right? But you are limited by the amount that you're willing to personally grow yourself as to how far you can grow your business because you have to push yourself past those uncomfortable moments. So we really focus on developing that character and developing that sort of growth mindset that's going to allow you to have access to freedom, which, ironically, the more times I wake up at 4:15 a.m. for my workout, for my meditation, for showing up for myself, then frees up space for me to actually give more of myself out to our students, to the other avenues that we have to focus on. And so, in order to increase my capacity, I have to become stronger. I have to become not just physically, but mentally, and be in alignment with that freedom. And so we teach kids that freedom is also, it's a kind of a tricky concept, because like if I grant you absolute freedom to do whatever you want right now, let's say I wave a magic wand, what would you do? Where would you start? You'd have to think about what it is that you're actually going to do. And so when we say freedom for the kids, that is freedom to do what you want to be, or become who you want to be.
Mm-hmm.
And while we're becoming who we want to be, it's really hard for kids because everything's changing so fast. You're growing up, you don't know where you fit in. Sometimes your friend groups changes. And that's all part of growing up, but it happens so much faster for kids. And so it's about being okay here first in your heart, knowing that no matter what happens, who's making fun of you, what season it is for you in this moment, that you have this. And that is freedom.
Yeah. And with freedom comes responsibility too. Because like you say, if I waved a magic wand and you can do whatever you want. So teaching those key aspects of like discipline, honesty, which should go along with business. Doesn't always in the real world, right? But we wish it did more and more. So that's the other flip side of freedom.
Yeah.
Right.
And our big thing is honesty. That's our number one value, followed by discipline and gratitude. But honesty is so important, and it's really hard to actually to be honest. It's a hard thing to do. We had a situation where a kid bonked another kid in the head with his lunchbox in Canada. And so one kid came to me and he said, yeah, this kid hit me in the head with a lunchbox. And I said, oh, like, he goes, he did it on purpose. I'm like, well, how did you know? And he goes, because it really hurt. And I'm like, oh, okay, well, that makes sense. So then I brought the other kid in there and I said, hey, did you bonk this young guy on the head with your lunchbox? He goes, yeah, I did, but it was by accident. And the other kid, before he even had a chance, he goes, no, it hurt way too much. It couldn't have been an accident. So,
interesting.
I asked him again. I'm like, well, like, was it on accident or was it on purpose? Then he goes, well, it was on accident. And I'm like, okay. I'm like, keep in mind, it's more important that you're honest with yourself more than anything. And I'm like, whether you did it on purpose or not. And so I'm like, I'll give you a chance to be honest, because I'm like, one, I pay for honesty. Because that uncomfortableness of actually being truthful in the moment is really, really hard. And even before you speak the truth, you feel like you don't want to sometimes. But it's about recognizing that and still overcoming that is really the important part of just being human. And so the kid finally admitted that he actually did it on purpose through our conversations. And I was just asking him questions, peppering him with questions. And then eventually the truth does come out. And from that spot of honesty, then he could give the most genuine apology that you've ever heard from a 9-year-old kid. Because then he was admitting to himself first what he did in that situation. And then the kids actually got closer together because they had that moment where the kid actually realized that, whether it was a joke or something like that, I don't know. But in that moment, then they came closer together because it came from a place of honesty.
Yeah. Yeah, we could feel that, right? So
exactly.
Yeah, what an excellent lesson for him. Like that is, and you're right, that initial part where you're like, oh, I want to tell the truth, but it's like ripping that Band-Aid off, right? Even as adults, we're like, oh, because you think of the consequences. But yeah, it's always better if you do. I mean, I've found that anyway. I've experienced a lot of. I remember in university, I had a run-in with the dean about something, and I had gone to see her before and always told the truth. And this other situation, which was I was put on the spot for something I didn't do, I brought that up. I said, well, you've seen me so many times before, and have I ever tried to lie to you? And she was like, no. And I was like, well, why would I lie this time? Right. And she considered that. So it's like you're building your character and your reputation, like your thoughts and your actions. Um, Over time, they build your character and it becomes who you are. So that was a valuable lesson for that kiddo. Yeah. So, would you agree with this statement? I hear this a lot from people when I talk to them. I tell them, I've had my own business for 18 years. They say, "Oh, I could never do that." And some people are just not meant to be entrepreneurs. Would you agree with that statement, or can anyone learn to be an entrepreneur?
No, I believe the biggest thing that holds most people back from being an entrepreneur is fear.
Mm,
Um, and so business, there's a lot of aspects of business that are challenging, that are difficult. But you don't need to be, an Albert Einstein in order to do business.
yeah,
And so all you have to do is make a commitment to yourself that no matter how hard it gets, that this is your purpose. And that's the beautiful thing about business, is that it gives you an ability to create. And that's why we started with entrepreneurship, is because I'm a firm believer that we're here on this planet to create something.
yes,
And in 2025, it's most likely through business. Like whether you want to be a lawyer, doctor, tradesperson, doesn't matter your background. There's a business that's providing a paycheck for you to continue what you want to do. And
yeah,
so, or maybe you want to change the world,
yeah.
there has to be a business behind that in 2025. Now, maybe that'll change.
Mm.
But for today, that holds true.
Yeah, and I believe what you said there about being creators. Like, I believe we need to be creators, and we're sold this bill of goods like we need to just consume, consume, consume all the time. And I think that's a big reason why um, there's a lot of depression and things like that in the world, is because we were actually meant to create. Like, we're creators, and if we're not creating in some capacity, then a piece of ourselves is really dying. So I think entrepreneurship really does give you, because you can create, like, the sky's the limit, right? You create your own packages. You created your own school course, program for kids, Mini Titans, right? You had the creative freedom to just do whatever you wanted, and it's so fulfilling. Even if it's a side project, I always tell people, like, even if you don't want to become a full-time entrepreneur, surely there's something you've thought of creating, like, as something on the side of what you do as your day job, right? We're just built that way, I think.
Exactly.
um
Yeah.
yeah. So
It's,
we know
it's
it's important to teach financial literacy at a young age. We don't really get this anywhere else, but what are some practical ways that parents and teachers can start those lessons at home?
yeah, it just becomes, what you want to do with the money. So for instance, even my kids, so now they're making their own money, doing the camps, doing the markets, they're producing things. And so this Christmas, this Christmas came around, and the school they had the kids drew these nice pictures, and my kids' artwork, I really liked it. And then we looked into buying something, and it was like $34 to put this thing on a mug or something crazy. I'm like,
Mhm.
$34, like right before Christmas, like way to pull on like parents' heartstrings. Um, and the kids really obviously enjoyed their artwork, so they wanted to buy it. And the beautiful thing about what we're in a position to do now is, I took a step back and I said, well, like, we're coming up on Christmas time. I already have all of these plans to spend money on you guys, but you guys are making your own money now. So if you really want it, why don't you use your own money to buy it? And so my kids actually sat down and reflected, and they said, you know what, Dad, like, I don't think this is really worth spending my own money on. So I
Mm.
didn't even have to tell my own kids no. They came to that conclusion by themselves. I was feeling guilty as a parent as to not being able to buy something that they really wanted, that they made. Um, but we were able to actually, through that financial education of having their own money and their own responsibility to make their own choices, um, have them reflect on that. And so I think, what parents can do best is give their kids the opportunities to make a budget, create something, even a dish at home. Okay, you have this much money to spend on supper. How are you going to allocate that? What does that look like?
Mm.
What do you want to make? is it possible to buy lobster on a $5, meal plan?
Mhm.
And just getting them involved and allowing them the opportunity to view it for themselves. Because as parents, like, I'm bad sometimes with my own kids at over explaining things.
Yeah.
I'm like, why don't we just let them live it?
Yeah.
They'll figure it out. And if they don't, that's when I help them, guide them around the corners, or ask them a ton of questions to where
Mhm.
they're really coming deep. And then if they fail, so for instance, there was a market that Mini Titans was at, but it was my daughter's birthday, so we had to come later. And because it was my daughter's birthday, my son goes, well, I'm gonna buy his sister a present. And so he went around the market, and I said, okay, well, before you go and take a look at everything, what is your plan? What are you gonna buy? He goes, I don't know. And I'm like, well, what do you want to buy her? He goes, well, I don't know. He goes, I just want to check out and see what's there. And he brought $200. And so I said, well, if you don't have a plan, do you know what's going to happen? He says, what? And I go, well, you're going to overspend the amount of money that you have because you don't have a plan. And so long and behold, what happens? He went out, he spent all $200 that he had on a bunch of crap.
Mhm.
But now he knows that if he doesn't have a plan, he still brings it up to this day. I don't have to bring up the lesson. He brings it up himself. And now he's more apt to having a plan. So allowing your kids to fail, I think, is awkward as a parent. Not easy to do, but it's probably one of the most important lessons that you can teach them, both financially and just in general.
Mhm. Yeah, natural consequences, right?
Yeah.
Oh, you wanna go outside in -30 weather without a jacket on? Give it a try for 5 minutes, like, see what happens. Maybe that's a bit extreme, but
Yeah.
yeah.
I still have a hard time with that one, but
Yeah, yeah. But, yeah, my kid's the same way. He's very headstrong and like, "No, I know everything." It's like, "Yeah, sure, you're 8, you know everything, for sure. Let's give it a try," right? So I've had to learn to do that too, because 'cause I'm the same way. I over-explain and I try and ration and reason with him, rationalize and reason with him, and it's like, "Okay, I'll let you try it your way, and when it fails, then we'll talk again," right?
yeah. Well, my 9-year-old tried to move out one day, so
Oh,
yeah,
good.
I
He's
thought he
like,
was
"I know
really
how to be an entrepreneur. I can go live on my own. I don't need you guys anymore."
exactly, yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yes.
So maybe the downside of teaching entrepreneurism.
There
So
is, there is, and especially if you're not there to kind of support. So for when he wanted to move out, he packed his own box. Uh, the argument started because I asked him to clean up his Nerf guns,
uh-huh.
and this was in January, and so he said, I said, "Can you pick up your Nerf guns?" He goes, "Well, I think they're fine the way they are," and I said, "Well, they're not fine." I'm like, "I want to live in a clean house, and they're all over the place. So if you're going to be living under this roof, like this is
Oh,
part of your responsibility." And he goes, "Well, then I don't want to live here."
of course.
And I'm like, "Well, okay." I'm like, "Where would you go?" And then so he goes, "Well, I'm going to go to grandma and granddad's." And I said, "Okay, well, how are you going to get there?" And then I just started asking
Mm.
him questions. And then by the end of it, he was packing his own box full of Nerf guns. He got his jacket on, he got his boots on. And so then, the saving grace for me, we only live about, I would say, about a 35-minute walk to grandma and granddad's. But the saving grace for me is that he overpacked his box full of his stuff that he wanted. And while he packed all of his Nerf guns, I said, okay, well, what about a change of clothes? Like, what are you going to do with your clothes? And then he packed clothes. And then I'm like, okay, well, what if you get thirsty? And then so like all of it was me guiding him through this process to fill the box as heavy as he could. But they're all his decisions.
Right.
And then he's trying to carry this box down the road and it's too heavy. And so he decides that he's going to push it. Well, on his pushing, I'm warning him, like, okay, well, if you push it the whole way, the bottom is going to rip out of this box
Yeah.
because you're pushing it on cement, right? So you're going to have to carry it at some points, um, if the box rips, then I'm like, then what happens? He goes, well, then my toys are all over, and I'm like, yeah, and then you're going to have to walk one by one, or as much as your arms can carry to grandma and granddad's. You're going to have to come back and get more, otherwise somebody's going to pick them up and take them with them. And so we made it 2.5 blocks, and it was such an amazing moment for us because as he he couldn't carry it anymore by himself, and he kept asking me to help put it on his back. So I said, okay, well, I'll put it on your back. And then as we got to, there's a bit of a hill, and I said, okay, well, once we get to the top of the hill, I'm like, I can't help you. I'm like, if you're old enough to move out on your own, you have to take responsibility, and then you have to do this on your own. And I'm like, as your dad, like, I would love to help you out, but if you're old enough to live on your own, you have to face some of these living on your own consequences. And one of these is carrying your stuff by yourself. I'm like, when I move, nobody helps me. And so then he made it to the top of the hill, and then he starts carrying it. And then it wasn't long after that where he realized he couldn't do it anymore. So he got down, he started to cry and tear up a bit. And he said, Dad, I just can't do this. And I said, well, what do you want to do? And he goes, well, what's closer, Grandma and Granddad's or our house? Well, we were only 2.5 blocks away. And I said, well, it's our house. It's much closer. And so he goes, okay, I think I want to go back home. And I'm like, okay, buddy. I'm like, I think that's the right decision. I'm happy to have you back at home. And so I'm like, now we're going to have to carry this box home. But I'm like, you know what? I really appreciate it. He goes, what? And I go, you made it 2.5 blocks. I'm like, look how strong you are. That is an amazing feat. And I'm like, one day you'll be able to make it the whole way. And so then he picked back up his box, and I said, you see that sign down there? So it was just a speed sign. And I said, you make it to that sign. And I'm like, I will help you the rest of the way home. And so then we jointly carried the box. And then after that, you know what? I didn't have any issue asking him to clean up his Nerf guns.
Oh, that's so funny. I feel like that would have been a totally different conversation if it had been a mom doing that. Like if I was involved in that situation. I'm not quite the the totally rational, totally like non-emotional, like just logical, ask them questions and see what happens kind of thing. There'd be more crying or something like that probably.
Yeah,
Oh,
it is hard.
yeah.
Even for me, like watching him struggle the whole way,
Yeah, that
it
would
did
be.
hurt my heart. But
Yeah.
I knew that it was also a benefit to him in knowing how far he could go. And
Yeah, it's
so,
a long-term, like, lesson that, and sometimes I fail to see that, I just want it resolved in the moment, right? So I can get on with the thing I'm doing, but it's like, no, have patience, work through this because it'll have long-term effects, in the future. So that's really wise. I love that. So getting back into your program here, so I wanna ask about the things that kids have come up with. So is there anything that stands out as really creative or surprising products or companies that kids have come up with within your program that you can share?
yeah. So one of the coolest things I thought actually was mistletoe. So we did a November camp, and so just before Christmas, kids created their own little mistletoes. Um, the Some of them will actually do really nice packaging and package their stuff together. Some of them will sell it individually. One of the coolest things that came out of the camp actually was kids were coming up with slime, and they added too much borax to their solution, and it was no longer slimy.
Mm.
So then they actually came up with a whole new term, and they called it Mundo instead of slime. They sold this Mundo, and it actually sold more than the slime did.
Ah,
Um, and a new invention came out of our camps. So it's all about the pivot. And it's all about how we're going
okay.
to make this mistake into something great.
And did you help them with that pivot, or did they figure out the pivot on their own?
So once it wasn't slimy anymore, I asked them just through questions. This is all we do. We're really good at asking questions.
Okay.
And so we said, okay, well, what now? Like, is it slime? And they said no. And I'm like, okay, well, then you can't sell it as slime because our number one thing is honesty. So,
Yeah.
but what could you sell it as? And they're like, well, we
Mm.
can sell it as something else. I'm like, okay, well, like, what would you call it? And then they had a whole bunch of solutions, and then they settled on Mundo.
Mhm. Clever, and I like that name,
Yeah, I know. I liked it too. I'm like,
right?
wow, like that's really
Mundo.
cool. Yeah.
Yeah, that reminds me of you've heard of the Socratic method probably of
No.
asking. No? It's just a, method of just asking questions to get the other party to kind of come to the conclusion themselves rather than telling them something. It's kind of like that's what you're doing here, using that Socratic method. And it's even great in sales too. Instead of you kind of telling the client or the prospect everything, you're asking questions. Like, I think asking a good question is really shows you know your stuff, and it's revealing for the prospect as well, and it getting them to think about something versus telling them it helps you when you come to your own conclusion, make up your own mind about something. It sticks a lot better, kind of like your box and moving out story, right? Getting him to experience that himself versus you telling him about the experience that he would have had, it sticks a lot better, right?
It does, yes, because we're all on our own journey, and we all have to figure out that own path of what that looks like. And it's hard.
Yeah.
It's a really hard struggle. And that's what we do also in the camps. We teach kids just how to ask questions. We actually had there's a great story on LinkedIn where Ryan Townen came into one of our markets, and we were working with the kids and just saying, okay, like, how do you connect them with your customer? Like, you can tell them what you have and you can describe your products, but why are they interested in that? Why would they want to buy from you? And so then they landed on one of the questions to ask was like, hey, are you stressed? And then right from there, like, you can have two possible answers. And if they are stressed, great. You have a great solution in one of your products. Which one are you going to refer them to? If the answer is no, then what are you going to pivot also to one of your products that you also have an answer to? And so it just gets that conversation, gets that empathy going in kids. You know, we always tell kids to be kind, but what does that really mean? And why would you necessarily want to be kind? Sometimes we don't live in a world where you can be kind. And that's okay too. But what you really want to do is help understand somebody else's needs and stuff so that you can then either provide them a solution or just provide them honest feedback that you don't have anything available, but these guys over here do. And then you're still building long-term trust in your business and your brand and your reputation.
Yeah, exactly. Because you're giving that honest solution to them, acting as a fiduciary to their best interests, right? Even if it's turning away a prospect to somebody else, they're still going to have, because your reputation is everything in business, right? Back in the hundreds of years ago, they used to cart you around on a manure cart if you did bad business, right? And kind of take you through town and ruin your reputation that way. And that you didn't want that to happen. So I mean, we don't have the manure carts today, thankfully, but social media can become our manure carts, right?
Exactly.
So, or Google reviews, right? So that's definitely what you don't want. That can be ruined in half a second, where it takes years to build that up. So that's a good lesson as well. Have you seen maybe a child's confidence or outlook change because they participated in your program? Like, what's a story that kind of stands out to you where you saw a shift in a child?
Yeah. So we actually, after the camp, we asked parents what their experience was. And we also asked in the camp what the kids' experience is. And this is before sale day even happens, when I get the kids' feedback. But a lot of all of the kids so far is very positive experience. But the parents, the nice thing is, like 2 or 3 months later, a lot of them are noticing more confidence in their kids, more ability to kind of stand up and say what they're feeling is true.
Yeah. And
then the ability to talk with other people in a normal sort of sense. I mean, that has its own risks, and we're aware of that. But being your own best advocate and being able to speak up for yourself, I think is huge. And so we've seen parents who've actually reported their kids growing in confidence and the ability to speak up for themselves.
Nice. Yeah, that's so hard to do, especially as a kid, getting up and asking, an adult for, like, pitching something to an adult, or like the negotiations your kids had to do for the space they were in, I think is what you talked about. So that's really a good thing to learn early, and that's something that I definitely didn't have enough of, like public speaking and that kind of thing as well. Is really something that's missing from schools. And so how, like after the kids go through your camp, do you have anything that that like parents can take away with them so they can kind of continue the journey with their kids on entrepreneurship? Because I imagine some parents aren't entrepreneurs, have never been entrepreneurs. So how can they kind of keep that momentum going with their kids long term after the camp?
Yeah, so we're working on developing that out, like an evening and weekend program where we can do this regularly.
Cool.
But we host markets. I guess the best way for us to do that right now is through our markets. So kids can bring out their own little inventions that they're working on in their own time.
Okay.
Set up a table. Now we don't charge anybody for setting up a table, because one of the big things for us, we're a nonprofit, and one of the big things for me is allowing kids an opportunity to get away from screen time.
Mm,
It's so easy to kind of set them up in screen time, and then they're just in consuming mindset.
mhm.
And so we want to give them an outlet to produce. And then even so, for instance, this last market, my kids produced these paper airplanes. Now I did my best to convince them not to do paper airplanes, because anybody can kind of make paper airplanes and they're not really that much of value. But
Right.
um, they had to experience that for themselves. So after the market, when they didn't sell as much stuff as they thought they would, we had a discussion and a debrief about kind of what went on and why then paper airplanes may or may not be the best. Like, now, only one market doesn't necessarily give you the
Mhm.
full idea that is not a good idea, but maybe try it a couple more times, bring those same paper airplanes that you've already made out to next market and see if that's still the case. And if it is, then you pivot again. And so our markets are a great way to allow your kid to continue that education for now. And we are going to be coming out with new and other things that can help
Cool.
support parents in their journey.
Okay, cool. And how often are your markets?
So right now we have them about 6 times over the summer.
Oh, wow.
Last
Okay.
year we did it every Friday, but it seemed to be a
Wow.
lot. So yeah,
That's a lot. Yeah.
yeah. So we tailored it back to 6. That was our pivot, and we'll see how it goes this summer.
Yeah. Have you seen any past participants in your camps go on to pursue like an actual business themselves or anything like that? Like, has anything continued long term for any of these kids?
So the one of the kids actually started up his own car washing business
Oh,
with some experience, and he's actually also coming back to one of our camps to also experience it, because we teach the same principles in the camps. Every camp's a little bit different in the delivery, um, but the main thing is you're in a different group. You have a different opportunity to build new items, to invent new things, and then see which is working and which is not, because that's really what entrepreneurship is. It's not about getting it right the first time. It's about
mm,
making tons of mistakes along the way and being able to adjust, look at what's working, what's not working. It's not good or bad, it's just what's working, what's not working, and then make a change from there.
yeah. Yeah, and I can see you kind of venturing off into different aspects here. Like I can see you creating like board games for kids or books or like even going, I don't know if you've thought of going into schools and teaching like a segment, like a something to grade school kids about this or having some kind of program you sell to schools. I think that would be really cool though.
Yeah, we are working on that.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so the tricky thing with schools is that they usually only give us about a 3 hour window. And so it's
Yeah.
really hard to go deep and make an impact within 3 hours. And so if we
Yeah,
can't
true.
make an impact, then I don't want to do it.
Right.
So it's just
Yeah.
about working through that process to try to make an impact in order to at least inspire the kids a little bit.
Yeah.
or
Or
create
teach just
something.
one segment, like the good and bad debt. Like you could probably maybe do that in one 3-hour session. I don't know.
Exactly. Yeah.
Something like that. Just give them a taste of the high level stuff. But no, that's awesome. I love that this exists. And so where can people find you and support you online? I think we have your website here, minititans.ca.
Yeah, minititans.ca. Any follows on social media? We have a Facebook, a LinkedIn account, creating an Instagram account that's not online yet, but that's coming up. And even just getting involved, you can email us. Getting involved. We are growing. We're expanding. We're bringing on some new instructors,
Mhm.
and we really want to just provide that support to kids. Because there are other markets out there that charge kids to set up tables. There's other markets
Yeah.
that charge kids to do things, but we really just want kids getting out there, talking with people, meeting their neighbors, building that sense of community is more important to us than having the kids pay for tables. So
Mm.
even if you just want to be at one market, that's great for us too.
Yeah, and I can see you creating like kits or something like that that maybe kids can take home and do their own whatever lemonade stand or something like that, like a lemonade stand kit or something with some instructions that parents can help them with. And like, anyway, that's just me. I just love, you know, ideation and like seeing where a brand can go. But I just see so many different avenues for to take this. So I think it's really cool. And is there you're running summer camps right now, right? There's coming up
Yes.
soon.
Yeah.
And so is there still room in some of those summer camps? Can people sign up still?
Yeah. So we still have
Yeah.
room. So our first camp runs from July 14th to July 18th.
Okay.
And then the next camp runs August 18th to 22nd, whatever the Friday, 24th.
Okay.
24th. Yeah.
Awesome.
Sorry.
Okay. Well, I'm still looking for one more camp for my kid, and I think we don't have anything in August, so I'm gonna go check it out. So I'm glad this is coming out now because it's a good timing for all you parents out there who are thinking of what should I do with my kids for summer. Well, here's another great idea for you. So go check him out. Go check Mini Titans out at minititans.ca. And
And
I have tons of more questions I could ask you, but I should let you get back to your day. But thank you so much, Mike, for coming on and sharing your journey with us and sharing the passion you have for teaching these kiddos all the skills you're teaching them.
well, thank you. Thank you very much. And this opportunity has been amazing for us. It's I'm probably growing
Yeah.
more than the kids. So also the kids will come away with real cash in the camps.
Yeah.
So
Oh,
they'll have
cool.
money in their pockets
Oh my
at the
gosh.
end
So
of
yeah, sign up. You're gonna get your
it.
money back, you guys.
Not
Parents,
that
sign up for this camp. Their kids are gonna make money.
much. Kids on
That's
average make
awesome.
between $30 and $80.
Okay.
And it just depends on how much they make and how they package it.
Awesome.
So
Well, that's great. Thank you very much, Mike. And I appreciate you coming on. And for everybody, check out Mike's business at minititans.ca, and we'll catch you guys next time.